Have you noticed how small something can be and still take your whole day? A short text message, a look on someone's face, a comment that lands the wrong way, and suddenly you're not really living your life anymore. You're living inside a reaction. Your chest tightens, your mind starts arguing with someone who isn't even in the room. You replay a sentence from 10 years ago like it happened this morning. You start planning the future around one fear, and it feels so personal, like it's you. But if we're honest, a lot of us have spent years being quietly ruled by feelings we don't fully understand. Not because we're weak, not because we're broken, but because no one ever taught us how to meet emotion without obeying it. In the Buddhist tradition, this is one of the most ordinary kinds of bondage. Not chains you can see, just the invisible kind, where a passing mood sits down on the throne of your mind and starts making decisions for you. And the Buddha's question, whether we call it Buddhism or just human wisdom, sounds simple, but it can shake you. What if the problem isn't that emotions appear? What if the problem is that we hand them the keys? A human problem, not a personal failure. A lot of people hear emotional control and imagine someone cold, someone detached, someone who never feels anything. But that's not what this is. This is not about suppressing emotion. It's not about pretending you're fine. It's not about positive thinking your way out of fear. It's about something quieter, seeing emotions for what they are, visitors, like weather. A storm forms, it passes through, it moves on. Anger rises, then fades. Fear tightens, then loosens. Sadness comes in waves, then changes shape. None of it stays the same for long. And yet, most of us live as if a passing emotion is a permanent identity. We say things like, I'm angry, I'm anxious, I'm stuck, I'm just like this. And without meaning to, we fuse our sense of self to something unstable. It's like building your house on moving water, and then being surprised it shakes. Buddhist practice doesn't ask for a perfect emotional life. It asks for a more honest relationship with what you feel. Because emotion isn't the enemy, obedience is. The moment we lose ourselves. Let's make it practical. Anger shows up, and suddenly the voice gets sharp. Fear shows up, and suddenly the body retreats. Jealousy shows up, and suddenly your mind starts comparing. Regret shows up, and suddenly you're living in the past. Most of the suffering isn't the emotion itself, it's what happens next. The part where emotion becomes a command. And here's a tiny shift that changes everything. Instead of saying, I am angry, you can notice, anger is here. That's it. Small words, big difference. The first sentence makes anger your identity. The second sentence creates space. And in Buddhist training, space is where freedom lives. Because when emotion is seen clearly, it starts to lose its power. Not through force, not through pushing it away, just through being recognized. A story from the Buddha's life, the night of the storm. There's a story told about the Buddha on the night he awakened. He's sitting under a tree after years of searching. His body is tired. His mind has known craving and fear, discipline and disappointment. And the old story says Mara came. Mara isn't a monster in the usual sense. Mara is the force of temptation, fear, doubt. Everything that tries to pull a mind away from clarity. Some versions describe armies. Some describe storms. Some describe seductive voices. But psychologically, it's familiar. It's that moment when your mind gets loud. This will never change. You're not good enough. You need to prove something. You need to run. The Buddha doesn't wrestle Mara. He doesn't argue. He doesn't flee. He stays still, present. And that stillness becomes stronger than force. Because emotions, when they aren't fed, burn out. A fire can't keep going without fuel. And so many of our emotions stay hot because we keep feeding them with story, replaying the insult, imagining revenge, proving your case, predicting disaster. That's fuel. The Buddha's approach was not dramatic. It was steady. He met the storm with awareness, and the storm passed. Reaction and suffering, the spark and the fuel. Buddhism makes a distinction most of us forget to examine. There is what happens, and there is what we add. Life brings loss, uncertainty, pain, disappointment. That's not a personal flaw. That's being alive. But the Buddha pointed to something uncomfortable. Suffering multiplies when reaction takes over. The world provides the spark, the mind provides the fuel. Think about how often suffering continues long after the event is over. The conversation ends, but you keep reliving it. The mistake happened, but you keep punishing yourself. The criticism was small, but it echoes for days. The Buddha's insight here is simple. Between what happens and what you do next, there is a gap. Sometimes it's tiny, sometimes it feels invisible, but it's there. And when awareness is trained, that gap widens. You begin to notice the heat of anger before the words come out. You begin to notice anxiety before the avoidance kicks in. You begin to notice the ache of sadness before it becomes a story about who you are. And that noticing changes the entire direction of a moment. Not because you become perfect, but because you become present. A modern American mirror after 2008. A lot of people in the United States still carry emotional scars from the 2008 financial crisis. Not just money, but the feeling underneath it. The ground didn't feel solid anymore. People watched retirement plans shrink. Jobs disappeared. Homes went underwater. Even if your own life stayed stable, the air was full of uncertainty. And what did many minds do with that uncertainty? They reacted. They tightened. They panicked. They blamed themselves for feeling afraid, which made it worse. Or they went numb, which didn't actually heal anything. But some people, quietly, without headlines, did something else. They learned to pause. To take the next right step without needing a guarantee. To feel fear without letting fear drive the car. To stop demanding certainty from a world that can't provide it. That's not denial, that's steadiness. And it's deeply aligned with what the Buddha was pointing to. A life without storms isn't promised, but a mind that doesn't get swept away, that can be trained. Desire and aversion, the hidden engines. Now here's one of the Buddha's sharpest observations. Under most emotional storms, there are two quiet forces, wanting and resisting, desire and aversion. Wanting, approval, comfort, control, reassurance, certainty. Resisting, discomfort, criticism, grief, uncertainty, vulnerability. These two forces shape so much of our emotional life. Anger often rises when a desire is blocked. Fear rises when loss feels possible. Jealousy rises when the mind grasps at what someone else has. Anxiety rises when we can't tolerate not knowing. And the Buddha didn't say this to judge anyone. He said it because seeing the engine helps you stop being dragged by it. A question that can quietly loosen the grip is, what is the mind wanting right now? What is the mind pushing away? Sometimes the answer is surprisingly tender. Not, I want that thing, more like, I want to feel safe. I want to feel respected. I want to feel like I still matter. When you see that, the emotion becomes less like an enemy and more like information. And information doesn't have to be obeyed. The illusion of a solid self, why everything feels personal. There's another teaching that can sound abstract until it becomes deeply practical. The Buddha questioned the idea of a fixed, permanent me, not to erase your personality, not to make you passive, but to loosen the clenched identity that emotions keep targeting. Because emotion gets most intense when it feels personal. I'm being disrespected, I'm being rejected, I'm failing, I'm losing who I am. But when you look closely, what you call self is always changing. Sensations change, thoughts change, moods change, roles change, the body changes. And the more tightly you grip a story about who you are, the more emotions feel like life or death. When identity loosens, emotions don't have the same target. Criticism lands differently. Praise becomes pleasant, not addictive. Failure becomes information, not humiliation. And life gets lighter. Not perfect, just lighter. Stillness is stronger than force. Most of us were taught one of two strategies: either act the emotion out or stuff it down. But Buddhist practice points to a third option: stay with it, without feeding it. That's what stillness is. Not freezing, not pretending, not disconnecting, just refusing to add fuel. A small practice you might recognize in daily life is, When emotion rises, see if it's possible to feel it in the body for a few breaths. The tight jaw, the heat in the chest, the restlessness in the belly. And then, just for a moment, drop the story. Not forever, just for now. And something surprising happens. The emotion peaks, and then it shifts. Because most emotions are self-limiting when they aren't being served constant attention. Stillness becomes a kind of inner strength, the strength to remain human without being hijacked. Compassion without attachment, staying open without being owned. Now there's a subtle trap. As people get better at emotional control, sometimes they pull away from others. They become distant. They mistake numbness for wisdom. But the Buddha's path doesn't end in coldness. It matures into something more refined. Compassion without attachment. Caring without demanding. Loving without needing control. Helping without tying your peace to the outcome. A lot of relationship suffering comes from attachment dressed up as care. I need you to act this way so I can feel okay. I need you to understand me so I can feel safe. I need you to change so I can relax. And when life doesn't cooperate, emotions erupt. Compassion without attachment is not indifference. It's a clean kind of love. You can sit beside someone's pain without drowning in it. You can set boundaries without hatred. You can walk away when necessary without turning it into a war inside your chest. And compassion includes you too, because harshness toward your own emotions only creates more suffering. Daily discipline, how freedom becomes real. Everything we're talking about sounds beautiful, but the Buddha was blunt about one thing. Insight without practice doesn't liberate, it entertains. Emotional patterns were built through repetition, 1,000 small reactions, 1,000 times the mind learned, this feeling equals action. So freedom is built the same way, small moments, repeated, not dramatic, not glamorous, just real. A few simple anchors can help. Thursday, it's softly. Fear is here, anger is here. A short pause, a few slow breaths before responding. Enthusi back to the body, where is it living right now? Going without self-attack when you forget, because forgetting is part of being human, and the goal isn't perfection, it's becoming less ruled. Closing. Letting go is not loss, it's power. At the deepest level, suffering survives because the mind believes letting go is dangerous. Letting go feels like losing control, losing identity, losing protection, losing love. But the Buddha turned that upside down. Clinging is what makes us fragile. Letting go is what makes us steady. Not letting go of life. Letting go of the demand that life be certain. Letting go of the demand that people behave the way we want. Letting go of the demand that emotions mean something final about who we are. And when that demand loosens, emotions still come. But they come like weather. They pass through, and you remain. So maybe a gentle question to carry into the rest of your day is, what feeling has been sitting on the throne lately? And what might change, just a little, if it was allowed to visit, without being allowed to rule? Not a life without storms. Just a life where storms don't decide who you are.